On Tuesday, there is a winner-take-all contest in states such as Ohio and Florida, 3 others. Ahead of that, one last Republican debate tonight in Miami. Sources say the establishment is pressuring Senator Rubio to suspend his campaign now to unify the so-called anti-Trump vote. My next guest knows a lot about working outside of the establishment. He is a 3-time presidential candidate, former congressman from Texas. Dr. Ron Paul is with me now. Dr. Paul, thank you for the time. The president,
nice to be with you.
I'm so glad, called the race, Obama calling the race and I'm going to quote him, a Republican crack-up. Do you agree with him on that?
Yeah, pretty much so, but I think there's a Democratic crack-up, too, and I think there's a Federal Reserve crack-up. I think there's a big thing going on where the whole system is coming unglued and nobody knows exactly what's going on, so it becomes a partisan, personal thing. So I think it's a distraction from the issues that I care about. And, you know, like, does anybody seem to care about the deficit and the debt that's going up? Nobody really talks about it. Does anybody care about maybe changing our foreign policy a little bit, or anybody talking much about negative interest rates? I mean, these are big issues and they're ignored, and the unsustainable, debt and the obligations we have. And then, yes, it's a personal thing now, and with Trump there, you know, it's a partisan thing, it's an intra-partisan thing. But I think this represents the fact that they don't talk about the issues and they don't have any solutions.
Your son obviously has similar views as to you, especially where it concerns the Fed and reducing the deficit. I know he suspended his campaign, he stepped out. Among who is left, who makes the most sense to you?
They all make no sense to me because they're all in the same category. There's different varieties, Republicans and Democrats, but the principle they follow is authoritarianism. They believe that the economy should be run and regulated. For instance, we have total economic planning through the monetary system, but that's endorsed by Republicans and Democrats. So I can't pick one over the other. Personality-wise, fine, and independence.
But you will vote,
fine,
right, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, I will, but I don't see anybody on the ballot right now that I can say, oh, I know who I'm going to vote for. I have to wait and see who appears on the ballot. But right now, I couldn't, lend support for any of the Republicans left in the race or the Democrats in the race because they offer nothing new. It's the same old stuff.
Okay.
And it's all big government.
Speaking of same old stuff, the president more or less said the same thing. Here is another comment of his on the race.
What you're seeing within the Republican Party is to some degree, all those efforts over a course of time, creating an environment where somebody like a Donald Trump can thrive. And in fact, in terms of his positions on a whole range of issues, they're not very different from any of the other candidates.
So, Dr. Paul, you're in agreement there as well in the sense that he sees all candidates the same, but they would disagree, and very strongly.
But basically, though, he could say that about the Democrats, too, because, their top candidate, 80-some% of the people don't trust her and don't believe that she tells the truth, and yet on some of the primaries, she'd win 80% of the vote. So if that's not a problem for the Democrats, I don't know what is. So I think there's problems in both parties. The Republicans would like to say it's all Obama's fault, but this is a problem that I see has been developing over 50, 60, 70 years. The entitlement system's out of control. The spending is out of control, and Republicans have never done anything to cut back 1 cent. Even in the 80s when we had Ronald Reagan, the national debt tripled. So this is why the people are cynical, and they're always looking for somebody.
Well, they're clearly
but right now,
looking for outsiders, right? As Bernie Sanders on one side shows and Donald Trump on the other. And speaking of Donald Trump, he was on last night with Sean Hannity. And here's what he said about going against, as he sees it, the establishment.
These are people that are taking advantage of our country. These are people that I know many of them. They don't want to have strong borders. They want stuff flowing across the borders. They don't want to have taxation when countries treat us unfairly because they benefit from that. Politicians will do what's right for the people that gave them the money, not what's right for the country.
That is part of why Trump has support, in the sense that people, the average person, really does feel like he is sticking up for them. Do you see it that way?
No, obviously not, but I understand what he's saying because there are problems out there, but you need a scapegoat. You know, it's all the Mexicans' fault, it's Chinese fault. Why don't we look to ourselves and see if we have a stable currency, if we have good economic policies? But to say Chinese is the fault, we need tougher bargaining, we'll put a tariff on it, 45%, that is so far removed from reasonable economic policy that I can't understand how anybody would put up with that, because that causes a trade war, and that we know the history of trade wars. It leads to other kinds of wars. But it's very appealing to pick scapegoats. So it's real easy to say, oh, it's all those illegals, they are the problems. Well, maybe we have some economic problems here. Maybe our entitlement system, our economic policy, and the Federal Reserve has created so much poverty here. We see those who come here as intruders. On a healthy economy, believe me, people are looking for workers. They're looking for workers, and that isn't the case now because our government, both parties, have screwed up the economy, and that's why they are not addressing the real problem.
So let me ask you, is there a part of you that sympathizes with Donald Trump? That is to say, he is an outsider and in many cases is going against the establishment. I feel like this pressure against him is just going to add to his appeal as an outsider. But do you understand at least where he's coming from, in the sense that apparently no one in the Republican Party wants to see him succeed?
Yeah, I think so. He is challenging the establishment, the status quo. But from my viewpoint, looking at it with the philosophy and the programs and things, there's nothing new to offer. It's just a different variant of authoritarianism and planning and telling people what to do. But he's really, really shrewd on politics. He understands the people's sentiment. So if it's immigration, he can play on this. If it's ISIS, okay, this ban all the Islamics from coming in here, send them back, or bomb them and do all these things. So he knows how to play on the sentiment, but that just stirs the pot. But he's very good at that, and he's very good. It's great to see the establishment annoyed because they don't think they can control him, and I'm sure they can't control him. But I'm afraid that is the case. They can't control him. That's half good. Maybe he'll challenge the establishment, and maybe they'll challenge the leadership of the Republican Party. But is he going to give us anything better? Is he still going to endorse this idea that big government should run our lives? And I think he let us know very loud and clear that he's for running our lives and running the economy and tell the world that he's the boss.
All right, Dr. Ron Paul, it is always great to have you here. Thank you for the time, for your insight. Appreciate it.